Kamusta mga kababayan? Sa panahon ngayon na mabilis ang pagbabago sa pandaigdigang ekonomiya at politika, isang mahalagang tanong ang dapat nating malaman. Sino na nga ba talaga ang may kapangyarihan sa mundo ngayon? At sa tanong na iyan, isang kilalang ekonomista at dating UN advisor na si Jeffrey Sachs ang may malalim at straightforward na pananaw lalo na tungkol sa papel ng BRICS Plus sa bagong global order. Kaya sa video na ito, tatalakayin natin ang buong pahayag ni Jeffrey Sachs kung gaano nga ba kahalaga ang BRICS, bakit ito tinuturing na alternatibo sa dating dominanteng kapangyarihan ng US at Europe, at paano nito binabago ang laro ng pandaigdigang politika. Ayon kay Jeffrey Sachs, kung susumahin ang populasyon ng mga bansang kasapi sa BRICS, ito ay umaabot na sa halos 50% ng buong mundo. While ang US at European Union na matagal nang nangunguna sa global affairs ay may total combined na 800 million na katao lang, katumbas ng humigit kumulang 10% ng pandaigdigang populasyon. At sa loob ng ilang siglo, ang 10% na ito ang siyang nagdikta sa direksyon ng ekonomiya, digmaan, kapayapaan at batas. Pero ayon sa BRICS, tapos na ang panahon na kami tagasunod lamang. Narito na kami ay modernong lipunan, mabilis ang paglago at hindi na kami basta-basta magpapadikta. Sa puntong ito, panoorin ninyo ang aktwal na pahayag ni Jeffrey Sachs mula sa isang panayam, kung saan malinaw niyang ipinaliwanag kung bakit hindi na US at Europe ang sentro ng kapangyarihan sa mundo.
Jeffrey Sachs is an economist, public policy analyst and a former senior UN advisor joining us now. Jeffrey, how important is BRICS?
BRICS is very important. The BRICS countries, if you add their population, reach about 50% of the world. Compare that with the United States and the European Union, which added together have about 800 million people, or 10% of the world population. So the show was run by that 10% for centuries, one could say. The North Atlantic countries, the European imperial powers, the United States after World War II. And what the BRICS countries are saying is, no. We have arrived. We are sophisticated. We are rapidly growing. We are in the technological forefront. And that 10% will no longer tell us or the rest of the world what to do. So this is the birth, certainly of multipolarity, which means different poles of power. But importantly and very interestingly, the BRICS are saying they want more than multipolarity, different power structures and centers. They want multilateralism, which means truly a rule of law that applies to the United States too, that applies to Europe too, something that applies for all countries in the world, not just the ones that were formerly the dominated countries.
We are just days away from Donald Trump's global tariff deadline that has rattled everyone. What is the influence of a group like BRICS? After all, it's not even a formal trading bloc like the EU. What can it do?
Basically, Trump is making the case for the BRICS because Trump is not an isolationist. He's a complete unilateralist. And he imagines the United States can do what it wants, can threaten anybody, can bomb when it wants to, can put on sanctions when it wants to, can put on tariffs when it wants to, irrespective of international law. Sanctions themselves have been declared year after year against international law by an overwhelming vote at the UN General Assembly. What the BRICS countries are saying is, we want a rule of law, not the United States doing whatever it wants. So as Donald Trump takes these unilateral actions, it strengthens the case for the BRICS countries, which are now 10 in the core of the membership. Saudi Arabia is kind of in, not quite in, so it's 10 plus another 10 partners. And they're saying we want systematic rules that everybody obeys, including the former dominating countries.
So it's interesting. Iran, which of course is one of the newer members of BRICS, has just recently been bombed by Israel and the United States. While you're telling us about the growing power, really, of BRICS, how does BRICS help a country like Iran currently?
Well, we saw that that was a very short-lived, violent war, so-called, 12 days. It was a war started with impunity, I have to say, by Israel, just unilaterally. The United States joined in, but it stopped quickly. And one of the reasons it stopped quickly was Iran was doing a lot of damage to to Israel in its missile attacks. The fact of the matter is, no matter how much bombast one hears from Washington, Washington does not dominate anymore. And that's really what the BRICS are signifying. Iran had the strong diplomatic support of Russia and China. It had its own means to respond. That is a kind of deterrence.
Interesting.
And in the end, this is why the BRICS signified the true balancing of what were the dominant powers of the world until the last 20 years or so.
China, of course, is the world's second largest economy, the powerhouse, surely, economically in BRICS. What does China get from being a member?
Well, first of all, China's larger than the U.S. economy if measured at a common set of prices. So this is a technical detail, but when we talk about output measured at purchasing power parity, which the IMF, for example, reports, China's about 30% larger than the U.S. economy now. In industrial production, far larger than the United States economy. But China knows that the U.S. Doesn't like rivals. So the U.S. Wants to gang up on China, wants to bring Europe into an anti-China coalition. Well, China's got lots of friends in the world because it is the main trading partner of more than 100 countries around the world. And the BRICS countries are partners with China. And as I've said, they constitute about half the world population. So the BRICS is a very helpful club for China, for Russia, for India, because it signifies their arrival as major powers in the world that aren't going to be dominated or pressured in the old-fashioned way by Europe and the United States.
Thank you so much for your insights. Jeffrey Sachs, an economist, public policy analyst, and a former senior UN advisor.
Mula sa kanyang pahayag, malinaw ang kanyang punto na hindi isolationist si Trump, kundi isang unilateralist. Gumagawa ng desisyon na labas sa batas at ayon lamang sa gusto ng Amerika. Ngunit ang BRICS Plus, na ngayon ay may 10 core members at humigit kumulang 10 partner countries, ay nagsusulong ng isang multilateral na kaayusan. Isang sistema ng batas at patakaran na pantay-pantay para sa lahat ng bansa, kabilang na ang US at Europe. Halimbawa, Iran, isa sa mga bagong miyembro ng BRICS Plus, ay malakas ang suporta mula sa China at Russia, lalo na sa harap ng mga kamakailang tensyon sa gitnang silangan. At dahil sa bagong balanse ng kapangyarihan, hindi na ganun kadali para sa US at kaalyado nito ang mangibabaw gaya ng dati. Ayon kay Sachs, kung susukatin sa purchasing power parity, mas malaki na ang ekonomiya ng China kaysa sa Estados Unidos. Sa industrial production, sobrang layo na ang agwat. Ngunit dahil dito, sinusubukan ng Amerika na magbuo ng anti-China alliance kasama ang mga bansa sa Europa. Pero ang realidad, ang China ay pangunahing trading partner na ng mahigit 100 mga bansa at kasama nito ang mga bansang kasapi sa BRICS. Kaya para sa China, ang BRICS Plus ay hindi lang alyansa kundi proteksyon at lakas sa harap ng pandaigdigang pressure. Sa kabuuan, malinaw ang mensahe ni Jeffrey Sachs. Nagwakas na ang panahon ng iisang sentro ng kapangyarihan. Ang BRICS Plus ay simbolo ng bagong pandaigdigang kaayusan, kung saan ang mga dating tagasunod ay ngayon ay mga aktibong leader na rin, pantay sa mata ng pandaigdigang usapan. Kaya mahalagang tanong ngayon, handa na ba ang mundo sa isang multipolar at patas na sistema? At ang mas mahalagang tanong para sa atin, nasaan ang Pilipinas sa lahat ng ito? Kasama ba tayo sa bagong direksyon ng kasaysayan? O naiwan tayo sa lumang sistema? Kung nagustuhan ninyo ang video na ito, huwag kalimutang i-like, mag-subscribe at i-click ang notification bell para sa iba pang makabuluhang content tungkol sa geopolitics, ekonomiya at iba pa. Maraming salamat at hanggang sa susunod.